GM, and welcome back to Crypto Saving Expert, the show where we discuss the latest cryptocurrency news and introduce you to the pioneers and the founders of the space. Today, I'm very kindly joined by a previous guest. I think it was about 3 months ago that we last caught up. But Ben, you're from xU3O8. How are we doing, man? How's the market been for you?
Yeah, look, I think overall very positive. We continue to build new features and capabilities around xU3O8. I think what we've got now is something that's super exciting, which I know we'll dig into. But yeah, we've been busy since the last time we spoke, and it doesn't seem to be any sign of slowing down, which is no bad thing, although hopefully some time off in the holiday season.
Yeah, we actually did speak about, some of our predictions and expectations for the rest of the year, slightly off air, but we'll get into those a little bit later. But first, Ben, I think for anyone who perhaps is new or didn't catch the stream back in early August, it was, if we could have a rundown of X3O8 and also, explain what you've been up to in the meantime and really, what X3O8 with trading uranium is.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I appreciate the time to come and talk about this again. So xU3O8 launched in December last year and launched with our platform uranium.io as well. And it was the world's first and still, we've not seen any others come out there, world's first blockchain-based platform for trading physical uranium. So uranium is interesting because it's an asset that's critical for nuclear power. So it's a great way, we thought, to sort of, and it's to play the wider trend and theme around the need for power, and particularly, we've seen that out of the US since the new administration's come in this year, but also from AI and data centers. So uranium very much is a technology flavored commodity. So we saw great potential and alignment with people who operate in the digital asset space, who tend to be a bit more technology focused. And also it's an asset that historically has got two real big values for holding in your portfolio. Historically, of course, not financial advice and do your own research, but historically it's performed very well relative to other asset classes like gold, traditional equities, oil. And the second benefit why would someone should want to hold it potentially is it's got very little to no correlation with all of those major asset classes as well. So we think for those reasons it's super interesting. But until we launched in December, it only traded in terms of physical uranium over the counter in $8 million at current spot prices, sort of minimum clip sizes. And then you need to have a converter account and all of the operational burden that goes around that, which is for good reason, of course. Or you could buy, a product that was a proxy for the physical uranium, like a closed-ended investment trust that's listed on exchange there's one in Canada and there's one in London. But obviously, because they aren't the actual physical material, but a product that holds that, you're investing in shares of that trust. You don't necessarily get the same exposure profile as you would from holding directly the physical, which is what this gives you. If you hold xU3O8, that's realistically beneficial ownership in physical uranium, which if you were so inclined, you could physically redeem and you had a converter account. Also, we're seeing some interesting conversations that we've been having since we last spoke with people in the uranium supply chain, miners and producers that are now have spare inventory that they're looking at how they could potentially use our capability to tokenize. So they, don't, because that 100,000 pounds in weight minimum I referenced earlier also applies to if you want to sell some surplus inventory. What you can do with xU3O8 now is take a smaller amount, 10,000 pounds in weight, 15,000 pounds in weight, tokenize that and do with that what you will. So, really, in short, what it's about is it's a proper blockchain financial markets infrastructure play. It's not about creating a different asset. It's not about creating an asset reference token. It's about using blockchain technology to improve the way what has been historically opaque market operates, and therefore provide more access and we hope attract more capital.
Do you believe with this modernization and for the traders out there, I've taken a look at the charts and like you say, there wasn't quite the correlation with, your traditional commodities. Do you think that, the modernization, tokenization of uranium, do you think that this will, resolve the long-standing gaps in the uranium market?
I think resolve is something that is going to be a real challenge to do over the next decade. I think if you look at, where the market is, already there's a demand and supply shortfall as it relates to fueling the current fleet of nuclear reactors, notwithstanding all the additional capacity that's being approved and coming online and required. From a supply side, obviously the predominant means of getting uranium is mining it. And so a lot has to change that goes beyond just attracting capital. But attracting capital and making that market more liquid is something that is going to make, in our view, more people, more institutional investors willing to take a chance on funding and entering the uranium market in one way or another. And it gives you, if you've got a liquid transparent market, we see that kind of begets more capital because people know how much value they can expect to get out of funding a uranium mining operation or whatever else, right? They can then more accurately forecast what that price might look like in the future. So I think long term, what do I hope and what do I believe is that xU3O8 becomes the primary mechanism for trading spot uranium, because you can do everything you do in the spot market, but much more efficiently and trade it 24/7. Do I think that solves the supply and demand gap? Not directly in the short term, but in the longer term, I absolutely think it could play a role there.
Yeah. And Ben, how did you integrate the live price with on-chain systems?
Yeah, so the live price, because again, there are a couple of firms, and we use one of them, Numerco specifically, that do produce near live pricing during market hours and then have a daily fix as well. That's taken from their pulse on the market and speaking with brokers and the like, because the market actually only trades OTC, not in organized fashion. So we had to create the live price feed first, right? And so that involved taking some of that price, we're taking that pricing plus other correlated uranium assets, whether they're listed ETFs, like the uranium miners ETF and things like that. And actually what you can see is there are correlated assets that operate across global markets, right? There's some in Australia, there's some in Korea, there's some in the US, of course, and then there's some in Europe. And so what we've done is we've built a filter or an algorithm that gives us a reliable-ish, as reliable as one can be, price estimate on a minute-by-minute basis. And then we've used a partner called Redstone to take that feed and then, in conjunction with some backup feeds as well, produce that as an oracle on-chain so people can see that on-chain. Eventually, what we want to do with the live price feed is, of course, integrate and have enough liquidity in our live markets, which include uranium.io, Hanji as a decentralized central limit order book on Etherlink, and the 3 centralized exchanges that were listed on, which is KuCoin, MEXC, and Gate, that actually we have enough volume and liquidity in those markets that then becomes something that we can feed into this live price estimate as well. So we publish that price out on chain, so it's usable in other DeFi applications. And then that's a great way that we've been able to move forward to the next big iteration, which is around the borrowing and lending market that we've been able to create.
I've just pulled it up on the screen here.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I've got to mention this because this is a huge move. So you've partnered up with Oku Trade and Morpho Labs there. For the audience here, what does this partnership, what does it entail, and what will it allow holders of the token to do?
Yeah, look, in short, it unlocks capital efficiency, right? So I think we're very familiar with uranium, and we know that it isn't a lot of your followers and listeners. It's not going to deliver the immediate returns that they would get from other coins out there. But what we wanted to do is sort of say that over the long term, historically, uranium's been a good investment. And so people buying that thesis, what they can actually now do is put that capital to work by really simply going to the borrow feature on uranium.io and then using their holdings of xU3O8 as collateral to borrow USDC. So you can borrow USDC. It's super simple. It's a few clicks. You can get up to 77% LTV. And this has all been enabled, as you say, through Morpho in the back end and then Oku Trade on the front end. And you can repay that at any time, like any other DeFi borrowing and lending product. The APR is pretty low right now. As the utilization increases, like with any lending pool, that will increase. But it's been pretty seamless so far, and we've seen some decent traction. And we think it's a great way for people to get the long-term benefit, as we see it, and we would say this, right, of exposure to uranium over the long term, while also being able to unlock capital for short-term opportunities as long as you pay back that loan. And there, of course, do your own research on all of this and make sure that you aren't sort of over leveraged or anything like that. But we think it's a really neat way to be able to take advantage of short-term opportunities as well as getting that long-term exposure.
Amazing. And yeah, you can see I've put it up in the background there, guys. You'll be able to find all the links below if you go over to uranium.io and then click over to borrow. That will then take you to Oku Trade. So go check it out, guys. All the links are there. I have to talk about real world assets, and I also have to ask your opinion. Does uranium, does xU3O8 fit into that real world asset narrative?
I think it absolutely does fit into that real world asset narrative. Again, I lead the efforts here, so I'm going to say it, but I think it is a great example of what actually delivering on the promise, of 10, 15 years ago of what blockchain could be for financial markets actually can look like in a real world sense. So what we've done with xU3O8 is go from a market that is opaque, only traded OTC, exclusive number of participants that can engage in it, to no minimums, traded 24/7, on chain, completely transparent, and actually improving the rails, not just for those individual investors. That was our primary goal, which I think we've achieved, and we're just working to now attract that capital, but also for the existing participants in the market with improved rails that can then tokenize or physically redeem inventory as they need to, and helping with more of that capital allocation and capital efficiency. So for me, it absolutely fits in the real world asset trend. I would argue it's one of the better examples out there of a real world asset. And it's all been done with some quite clever legal engineering as well, in a way where we aren't creating lots of SPVs and exposure to different assets that expose you to second order and third order risks, that if that entity goes bankrupt, that you then lose all your capital, so on and so forth, because of the trust structure that we've got in place.
And I've got to ask, Ben, this may be leading off of uranium slightly, but are there any other real world asset tokens that you also see perhaps coming out of archaic traditional systems and also becoming tokenized? Is it just uranium that you're working on, or do you have your eye set on other assets perhaps as well?
Yeah, look, I think we absolutely love the blueprint that we've got, and we think that's actually the big innovation here is the structure around that, and we've got great partners and supporters with that, and so we absolutely see that as a blueprint that we can apply to other assets. What we're trying to do is think about the right narrative to create around those other assets that we bring into this. And so other metals that follow a similar pattern, that are traded only OTC in somewhat opaque markets, but are critical for societal demands, feel like good bets in terms of alignment, and that can play into the same trend around being a bit more technology flavored. So we are absolutely looking at other metals, whether they're rare earths, whether they're specific metals like lithium and cobalt. We're having those conversations as well. So
that makes a lot of sense.
So we bring those into market. I think where the market, I think, is going to struggle a little bit, and there's a bit more work that we all need to work on collaboratively, is how do we bring more capital into and provide the opportunity on chain for people to invest in any kind of asset, right? Whether that's fine art, racehorses, and the like. The challenge with that, as we've seen recently through some of the other, less esoteric real world assets like stable coins, is how do you price those, right? How do you get a fair and accurate and transparent price for that? Because that's absolutely critical. We're fortunate to a certain extent in the uranium market that at least there's a daily sort of fixed price, so we can benchmark ourselves to that real world market. But obviously what we hope is, and what we're well on the way to achieving, is becoming that real world price by having so much activity through what we've built in xU3O8.
Brilliant. And Ben, what have been some of your key insights since the token launch?
Yeah, I think the big insights for me are, that actually the world, what we've done is go back to basics with blockchain and how to apply the blockchain in the most simple, elegant way possible. Actually, a lot of participants in the market, exchanges, market makers, so on and so forth, are so familiar with a structure that isn't that we've kind of moved away from the core tenets and principles of what blockchain was initially established as. Is that actually it can be quite hard to achieve the level of distribution scale that we think a project like this should have, and that we talked about that last time. That's been a real key takeaway for me. Is that actually how you can concisely summarize that narrative around what you've been doing and why this is different is really important. I think the second big takeaway for me is, and this is common, and it's not just for RWAs, but for the industry more generally, right? Is how do we bridge some of these UX gaps that between attracting TradFi capital to on-chain assets, right? And that really, for me, falls into two main buckets as we've looked at it from what we've learned on uranium. One is, and we're going to have some announcements of this, I hope, before the end of the year, but maybe early next year. How do you seamlessly onboard fiat currency into digital assets? The UX around that is still really challenging, and I appreciate there are sort of regulatory hurdles to that, but making that as smooth and as seamless as possible as it is in other off-chain e-commerce is going to be critical for attracting that capital. And then the second piece is, and I never thought we'd be doing this, but we've had a lot of demand for a product like this, is how do you then reverse what is the efficient, more efficient foundational building block, which is the xU3O8 token now, and actually can you use that to make TradFi infrastructure and TradFi wrappers more effective, like an ETF? And so actually that bridging mechanism, some would argue that's a somewhat regressive step, is that we've got to the end state, right? And a lot of equity funds and things are looking at tokenization as the next stage of evolution for them. What we're finding is, to attract the level of capital that we want to achieve, we maybe have to take a bit of a backward step, partner with some TradFi firms, think about how this could be wrapped into something that is easily accessible on, as an exchange traded product on, Schwab in the US, on Hargreaves Lansdown in the UK, on Free Trade, all of these investment platforms. Actually, a lot of those aren't geared up yet to take tokenized assets in their quote unquote raw form. So I think that's been another big takeaway, which is it's a blend, right? I think as we evolve and mature, I hope that we stop talking about DeFi and TradFi and we just talk about Fi. That would be great. But what we're going to see is this blend of, it's on a spectrum, right? And we'll see this blend of models and capabilities and things that we need to sort of work between ourselves in the DeFi and Web3 space with our TradFi counterparts.
Yeah, I can see here, you're definitely putting in the work with the fintech side of things as well. You've been nominated for the best new product for innovation in crypto and Web3 at the Bazinga FinTech Awards. So that's actually today in New York. So a bit later today. Where are you based at the moment?
So I'm in London. So I am, we're a lean team. We're very budget conscious. We're proud to be, part of the Tezos ecosystem. So we've got someone who's US based going to that to represent us. Fingers crossed. It's great that we're shortlisted, but fingers crossed we get recognition from a predominantly TradFi audience about the innovation that we've brought here. So it's super exciting. I think it would be a nice way to end the year with a good sort of externally validated hallmark of what we've achieved. But we obviously can't control that outcome.
We can see, 317,000 followers. Bazinga's a huge company over in Detroit there, but the event is over in New York today. So best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Just have a quick flick through any more announcements down here. Features on the RAA watch list here. So that's cool. Lots of posts coming out. It's an interesting topic. So you're going to see more and more of it come up as people start to realize it, because it's sexier than traditional gold or platinum tokenizing that. I think uranium's got that kind of cool edge to it, and I think crypto and crypto will welcome it highly. So if we go onto this post quick, 43K views on that, so absolutely smashing it. Ben, where is the best place for people to find the next announcement and get involved in the community as well?
Yeah, look, I think, we have, you're on the X page or the X feed there. Uranium_IO is sort of our X handle. That's where most of the activity goes out on. If you want more detailed information, it's a super simple URL, uranium.io. You can find all of the info there. You can very seamlessly get access to the trading platform and also to the borrowing feature as well. And we've got quite a detailed help section. We even have sort of semi-live chat. As I said, we're quite a lean team, so it's not fully live, but we do a decent job of responding to any queries there too. And in the Learn Hub, you can see everything about what we've done. And I keep doing more and more of these types of conversations, so keep a lookout for that as well. And we're excited about what 2026 will bring and the rest of 2025. We've still got a month and a half left.
Yeah, and the market keeps throwing our emotions around the room, doesn't it? It's been nice today. Bitcoin's up at 106 last time I checked. I know some of the traders in the community are happy again. We're seeing a bit of a bounce. Still a bit of a split audience though. Still some people expecting lower, and then some expecting to break through this 106 range and push higher. Even all-time highs are being spoken about. But Ben, I won't push you for an exact prediction, but how do you feel the rest of the Q4, the rest of the year rather, is going to go?
Yeah, look, my personal view, it's kind of everything feels. I don't make price predictions. Call it my TradFi background and bias there in terms of fundamental analysis. I'm not a big looker at charts. I know that makes me unusual. So I don't make price predictions per se, but my overarching feeling just from being on the conference circuit, just generally being out and about, it does feel like we're sort of late stage in terms of the market cycle, particularly in crypto, but other risk assets as well. If you look at equities and other assets that have risk attached to them, it feels like we're sort of late stage across the board. That means a couple of things, right? Historically, that's meant you end up with these sort of interesting and good if you're an adept trader spikes every now and again. Dead cat bounces, some might call them, but whatever that is, you sometimes see that. But it also means applying some of those good portfolio practices around
diversifying. And we mentioned that uranium doesn't correlate with the rest of the market, so perhaps I'll let you guys put the dots together there. But yeah, always best to diversify. My opinion right now as well. I think we might see some upwards momentum. I think we're going to see some altcoins have a run. I think with privacy still a super high narrative right now. And then New Year, we're going to have to take it day by day. It does look like you say a lot of markets are perhaps topped out, especially in the stock market. There's a lot of hype, but at the moment, everything's going ahead, everything's running smoothly, and I hope for some good progression for the end of Q4 here. But guys, we will wrap up there for today. All the links for you xU3O8 are in the description below. Go follow them. Check out their Learn section as well. Really good bits, and like you say, their help section if you have any questions, or if you want to get stuck in the Discord with myself, ask me any questions. I can forward them to the team and get those answered for you as well. Ben, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate your time here. Great success to the token launch as well. Look forward to having you on very soon. Any final words from you, Ben?
No, just a thank you from me. Always really appreciate these conversations, and thank you for giving me the time to speak to your community. Really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Guys, take care. Make sure to slap a like on today's video and go give xU3O8 a follow. And I will see you all tomorrow with Block Pro. We're going to go through some trading analysis. See you there, guys. Take care. Bye.